Are you worried about the rising cost of fuel? Maybe what you need is a frugal, city-sized runabout, and the Kia Picanto could be the ideal tool for the job. Keep watching to find out whether sometimes bigger might not be better. Fuel prices are through the roof. At the end of May 2026, the average cost for a litre of petrol in the UK was 158 pence. That's a massive increase over the 110-ish pence the same litre of petrol cost at the start of the year. And diesel's even worse. So what's the solution? Well, you can save a bit of money by changing your driving style, but that only gets you so far, especially if you're daily driving a 3-litre BMW or a big Audi. You could also rush out and get yourself a hybrid, but they're more expensive to buy and more complicated to maintain than a normal car. In the old days, if you wanted to save yourself a little bit of money on fuel, you'd simply buy yourself a small, cheap car with a tiny engine and sacrifice a little bit of comfort to improve the state of your bank balance. That's now fallen out of fashion though, thanks to affordable leasing deals on massive SUVs. But do the old ways still have a place? To find out, I'm going to spend a bit of time with this Kia Picanto. It's one of the last remaining small petrol city cars on sale in the UK today. Prices start from a little over 17 grand, and in its most frugal trim, Kia reckons it'll do more than 50 mpg. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the Picanto's practicality, interior. Why is it on Absolute Country? Driving experience, it is awful. And running costs. You need a good credit score to get the best rates. To let you know exactly what you'll be sacrificing if you're thinking of downsizing. And more importantly, whether it's worth it. What? It's so efficient. I'm Luke Wilkinson, and you're watching another Parker's Cars review. I'll start with the Picanto's most obvious drawback, its size. It measures 3.6 metres long, which to put that figure into perspective is about 50 centimetres longer than an original Mini. To skin that another way, it's about 60 centimetres shorter than the nation's favourite SUV, the Ford Puma. Despite this, the Picanto is a surprisingly well-packaged little car. You can fit 2 adults in the back with just enough space behind the seats ahead to not destroy their kneecaps. The narrow bench means shoulder room is at a premium, but because the roofline is quite high, there's a decent amount of headroom. It honestly isn't bad for a city car. These seats are perfectly acceptable for short hops around town, although I wouldn't really want to spend a couple hundred miles in them, especially not with 2 extra passengers. Then again, the Picanto compensates for its cramped rear seats with its boot. You get 255 litres of space, which is 3 litres more than the Hyundai i10, 24 litres more than the Aygo Cross, and 45 litres more than the bargain basement Leapmotor T03 EV. In fact, the only car that can deliver more boot space at this price point is the Dacia Sandero with its 328-litre boot. But that's hardly a fair fight because the Dacia belongs to the next size class up. Interior storage is pretty decent for a car of this class too, so the door bins are generous, the cup holders in the centre console can be retracted to leave a space that's just about big enough for a little bag, and the smartphone charger is about wide enough to take a modern flagship phone, but if phones get any bigger, you're going to have to take a Dremel to the dashboard. So practicality isn't bad considering the amount of space Kia had to play with. But surely the affordable price means you pay penalties in quality and equipment elsewhere in the cabin, right? Well, you're going to be a bit disappointed if you're stepping out of a posh German car, but what the Picanto gives away in build quality, it more than makes up for in its ergonomics. I like the fact you get simple buttons for the climate controls and traditional dials for the volume control and the tuning. It's just so much simpler than faffing about with a touchscreen. Quality is good given the price point too. The materials are pretty cheap, but at least they've been assembled with care. It's certainly the equal of the Toyota Aygo X and far better than the recently discontinued Suzuki Ignis. Plus, because the dashboard and door cards are so hard wearing, the Picanto should stay looking fresher for longer. It's easy to clean, you can just muck it out with a damp rag and a vacuum cleaner. There's a problem though, it's oppressively monochrome in here. Everywhere you look is just black plastic. The only thing that brightens the cabin up is this strip of chrome across the middle of the dashboard, which I guess I'm glad it's there, but next to something like the Renault Twingo, it's just a bit depressing. The technology isn't hugely sophisticated either. Every version of the Picanto gets the same 8-inch infotainment system with wired smartphone pairing, which again is less impressive and less convenient than the 10.1-inch screen and wireless smartphone pairing you get from the Twingo. And you need to step up to the top spec £20,000 GT line S model before you get a wireless charger. Last bit of praise before I move on. I like this steering wheel. When Kia last updated the Picanto in 2024, it nicked this wheel from its larger cars, and because it's the thing that you interact with the most in here, it just makes the Picanto feel a little bit more upmarket. Driving next, and for a car that's so pathologically focused on fuel economy, you wouldn't think it'd be particularly fun on a good road. But you'd be wrong. Because it weighs less than a ton and it has a wheel at each corner, the Picanto's really nimble. That square stance and short wheelbase means it's really eager to nose into corners. The steering's a bit too light at speed for my liking, but this setup makes a lot of sense around town because it doesn't tire you out as you wind it from lock to lock. It also has a welcome old-school attitude to it. You can feel the steering rack working at the end of the column, and the front end does a great job of transmitting the texture of the road into your palms. I've got a lot of time for the Picanto's brakes too, so because it does without a hybrid system, there's no regenerative braking tech to get in the way of the pedal's action. They're a lot more linear than the brakes in the Aygo X, and because the Picanto's so light, you don't need to stab its brakes quite so hard to haul it up in an emergency. The ride on this top-spec GT Line S model is slightly too firm, but you can fix that by climbing down the tech tree to the more basic Pure model. You lose out on some interior tech, but you gain a set of smaller 14-inch wheels with squidgier sidewalls. Compared to the 16-inch alloys I have fitted to my car, they do a much better job of rounding off the harsh edges in potholes. The gear stick's vague, which is a shame, but I guess it's understandable given the Picanto's target audience. Your average driver doesn't really want a rock-solid short shifter. The good news is that the gears in the box are surprisingly well placed. First is incredibly low, which means you can take advantage of the Picanto's light weight to get the jump on much bigger, heavier cars that are being driven by inattentive muppets. You can have an automatic as an optional extra, but I suggest you avoid it if you can. That's because it's not really a proper automatic gearbox. It's a manual gearbox that's controlled by a computer, and it is awful. I've tried it in the mechanically similar Hyundai i10 and found it to be really slow and unresponsive. It also jerks between gears like a new driver learning clutch control. There are just two engines available in the Picanto. A 63 horsepower 1 litre 3-cylinder and a 78 horsepower 1.2 litre 4-cylinder. The former unit is the one to go for if you're looking to save the most amount of cash, as it's cheaper to buy and more efficient. Our testers managed to extract 60 mpg from it on their weekly commute, which is impressive for a non-electrically assisted petrol car. The Aygo X, meanwhile, manages 70 mpg. The trouble is, the 1 litre engine I've got fitted to this car is absolutely gutless. You can have a 1.2 litre engine as an optional extra, which makes far better sense for folk that plan to use the Picanto on the motorway, as it's got a hell of a lot more pulling power. You pay a minor penalty in fuel economy, but we've still been managing to get 50 mpg from the 1.2, which looks good when you compare it to the 45 mpg you'll get from the much larger, mild hybrid equipped Ford Puma. Finance is next, which is where the Picanto's battle is won or lost. The only reason you buy something like this for is because you want to save yourself a little bit of cash. So, to illustrate how much money you can save, I thought it'd be useful to compare it to the nation's favourite SUV, the Ford Puma. At the time of filming, the cheapest Picanto cost £17,095. The cheapest Puma, meanwhile, cost a whopping £27,145. That's a difference of more than 10 grand. Yes, I know the Puma is more practical and more fun to drive, but if all you need is a cheap runabout to get you to work and back, is it really worth spending that much extra cash? It's the same story with fuel costs, so assuming you can get 60 mpg from the 1 litre Picanto like what we did, you'll spend just shy of £1,200 on fuel over the first 10,000 miles the car's on the road. Well, that's assuming fuel prices don't climb any higher. Cover the same mileage in the Puma and you'll spend almost 1,600 quid on fuel, assuming you can meet the same 45 mpg real-world average we achieved during our testing. That's a £400 annual advantage to the Picanto, which, over the course of 5 years, works out to 2 grand back in your pocket. Granted, the entry-level Picanto has a lot less equipment on it than the most basic Puma, but the beauty of downsizing is that you can step up to the top spec trim and still save money over the most basic version of the car from the class above. Plus, you'll end up with a lot more equipment for your cash. Kia's range-topping GT Line S model comes with heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, automatic air conditioning, a wireless smartphone charger, and fancy safety equipment such as blind spot monitors and cyclist detection. All for around $7,000 less than the most basic Ford Puma. The Picanto's leasing deals aren't quite as attractive, so at the time of filming, the best deal I could find on a Picanto was £210 a month, which isn't all that impressive when you compare it to the £280 a month you'll spend on the cheapest Puma. And therein lies the problem facing small, cheap cars. Finance options like these have slowly eroded their popularity because when you can get an SUV from the class above for just another £70 a month, most buyers would ignore the city car because they think they're getting a bargain. What the dealers and the finance companies won't tell you is that over the course of a 3-year agreement, that extra £70 a month adds up to more than £2,500. So using traditional car finance to buy something this small and cheap doesn't really make sense because most of what you're paying for is depreciation. But because the cheapest Picanto is only £17,000, you could consider using savings to cover part of the cost before topping yourself up with a personal loan from your bank. You'll need a good credit score to get access to the best rates, but the repayments on a £10,000 loan should be about the same as the monthlies on the cheapest Picanto leasing deal, and you'll own the car from day one and you won't be bound by any mileage limits. I'm not going to say this option is going to suit everyone, but it's certainly something to consider. At the start of this video, I asked whether the Kia Picanto made viable sense for those looking to save a little bit of money on motoring. And although you make some minor compromises in build quality, space, interior technology and refinement, I reckon the sheer amount of cash you stand to save over a more predictable small SUV make it well worth it. Compared to the ever-popular Ford Puma, you'll save more than £10,000 by just buying the cheapest version of the Picanto, as well as £400 a year on fuel. What's even better is that you can get the top-spec version of the Kia and still save £7,000 over the base model Puma. It's a bargain. The savings are definitely there. You just need to be certain you can make the Picanto's dinky size fit your lifestyle, otherwise it's going to frustrate you every single time you reach for its keys. As I've showed though, you're not really losing out on all that much. It's a well-packaged and comfortable little car for its class. I'm a big fan, not least because the Picanto has more than double the warranty of most its B-segment competitors and can achieve an extra 15 mpg. Now that I've crunched the numbers, I don't think I could justify the added expense of a larger rival in our volatile new world of soaring fuel prices. But what do you make of the Picanto? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and while you're there, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss our next video.